Here's something nobody warns you about before you start a homestead. The single fastest way to burn out, lose a pile of money, and quietly give up within the first couple of years isn't bad weather, and it isn't a tight budget. It's picking the wrong animal first. People fall in love with the idea of a certain animal. They pour a small fortune into fencing, feed, and shelter. And then they slowly drown in the work it takes to keep something that barely gives anything back. The barn gets built, the hay gets hauled, the chores stack up, and one cold morning they realize the animal is taking far more than it ever returns. Meanwhile, the animals that could actually feed a whole family on a quarter acre get skipped right over because they're not the ones in the daydream. Our grandparents never picked animals for the daydream. They picked the ones that earned their keep, full stop. Today, I'm walking you through the 7 best animals for a small, self-sufficient homestead, and I promise you, most of these are not the usual suspects. But before any of that, I need to save you from 2 animals nearly everybody assumes they should get, and both of them will quietly sink a small setup. Let's start right there, because this might change your whole plan. First one, the family milk cow. I know, it's the picture every single one of us has in our heads. Fresh milk, homemade butter, cream on the strawberries. Here's the trouble nobody mentions. 1 cow in milk gives you 4 to 6 gallons a day. Every single day. Unless you're running a dairy or feeding a small army, most of that is going straight down the drain. A cow also needs real pasture plus a serious stack of hay all year long, and it chains you to milking twice a day. Every day, for months, without a single morning off. Big animal, big fences, big vet bills. The dream is beautiful. For a small place, it's just too much, too fast. The second one catches everyone off guard. Turkeys. The big, broad-breasted kind. The one sitting on every Thanksgiving table. Feels like the ultimate self-sufficiency bird, doesn't it? Raise your own holiday dinner. Here's the fact that stops people cold. That turkey cannot reproduce on its own. They've been bred so heavy up top that they physically cannot mate. And the entire supply only exists because of artificial insemination in a lab. You will never hatch your own. You'd be buying brand new poults every single year, which is the exact opposite of self-sufficient. They also grow so fast they end up with bad legs and heart trouble, and the babies are fragile and fussy to raise. If you truly want turkeys, a heritage breed can breed the natural way, and that's a different story. But the common turkey is just a yearly bill wearing a self-sufficiency costume. Now for the 7 that genuinely earn their place. And right out of the gate, I'm not going to insult you by telling you to get chickens. You already knew about chickens before you clicked on this video. Everybody starts there. This list is about the animals nobody bothers to tell you about. The quiet ones that outwork the obvious picks on a small piece of land. Half of these never make it into these videos at all, and that's exactly why your homestead will run circles around your neighbors. We're starting with a bird most people have never once considered, and it might just be the smartest first animal you can get. Quail. Here's what makes them remarkable. A quail starts laying eggs at 6 to 8 weeks old. A chicken makes you wait 5 or 6 months for that first egg. Quail reach the dinner table in about 8 weeks flat. They're so small and so quiet that loads of folks raise them right under the noses of their neighbors in towns where chickens are flat out banned, because no ordinance ever thought to mention quail. You can keep a whole covey in the space a single hen would need, and they barely eat a thing. About 5 quail eggs equal 1 chicken egg. They're rich and speckled and honestly beautiful, and the birds lay nearly every single day. A dozen quail will happily live in a hutch you could practically tuck on a balcony, and they'll hand you a steady bowl of eggs for it. If you've got a tiny lot, or you just want eggs and meat faster than any other animal can give them, this is your bird. The fastest homegrown protein on Earth, start to finish. I'll be honest, the first time I gathered a handful of those little speckled eggs for breakfast, I felt a bit like I was getting away with something. I'll be honest, I thought these health rings were a scam. I bought one half expecting to send it back. 3 months later, it hasn't left my finger. and it does way more than I expected. Sleep, heart rate, activity, recovery, my cycle, and stress, all from one little ring. The thing that helped me most? I realized my afternoon coffee was quietly wrecking my sleep. One small change, cutting it off after lunch, and within a week I was sleeping like a rock. Now here's why I'm telling you this. Right now, the ring's 63% off. Just $60 if you grab it through the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. There's a 90-day money-back guarantee if it's not for you. But I'm keeping mine. Number 2 is a duck, but not the duck you're picturing. Forget the loud white birds down at the park. I'm talking about the muscovy, and once you know what these do, you'll wonder why they aren't on every homestead in the country. First off, they're quiet. Muscovies don't quack, they hiss softly, so there's no dawn racket and no angry note from the neighbors. Second, they are pest control machines. Turn them loose and they'll hoover up flies, mosquitoes, ticks, slugs, the whole miserable lot while barely touching your feed bill because they forage most of their own food. Their meat is lean and rich, closer to a good cut of beef than to greasy duck. And here's the real kicker for self-sufficiency. Muscovy hens go broody and hatch their own ducklings, 2 or 3 batches a year. No incubator, no fuss, no electric bill. Most animals you have to coax into breeding, these just quietly make more of themselves while you stand back and watch. One honest note, they can fly, so a clipped wing or a covered run keeps them home where they belong. And in a hard freeze, those bare red faces want a dry, draft-free shelter. Put a few near the barn or the compost pile, though, and you'll watch the fly population crash without hanging a single one of those nasty, sticky strips. This third one is going to sound a little strange until you hear me out. Pigeons. Yes, pigeons. This was one of the most common sources of meat on homesteads for hundreds of years, and somewhere along the line we just plain forgot about it. The young birds, called squab, are a true delicacy, the kind of thing you can't even find at most butcher shops and that fancy restaurants charge a small fortune for. Here's what makes them brilliant on a small place. A pair mates for life, and both parents feed the babies, so the birds basically raise themselves. The squab are ready in under a month, before they ever learn to fly, which is exactly when they're plumpest and best. A single pair can give you a dozen or more birds a year, breeding right through the seasons. You'll want a meaty utility breed like the king, not the skinny racing kind. They live in a simple loft knocked together from scrap wood. They fly out and forage their own food and come right back home on their own, and most towns that ban chickens never say a word about pigeons. Quiet, cheap, and almost entirely self-sufficient. And here's a bonus the old-timers prize. Pigeon manure is some of the richest fertilizer there is. Centuries ago, people built whole stone towers just to collect it for the garden. Halfway through, and here's the one animal that makes everything else on your land work better. Honeybees. Stop and think about this for a second. Every other creature on this list eats from your homestead. Bees give back to all of it. Set a hive near your garden, and the pollination alone can send your harvests soaring. More fruit, more squash, more of nearly everything you grow. Then on top of that, they hand you honey, a sweetener you'd otherwise buy by the jar for the rest of your life. And raw honey never truly spoils, so it sits on your shelf basically forever. You also get beeswax for candles, salves, and food wraps. They need no pasture, no daily chores, and they head out and gather their own food. They are quite literally working for you while you sleep. There's a learning curve, I won't pretend otherwise, and you'll catch a sting here and there. But almost nothing on this earth gives back this much for so little land. Number 5 is the oddball that pulls double duty as your security team. Guinea fowl. These funny-looking birds are a living pest patrol and an alarm system rolled into one. They'll hunt down ticks by the hundreds, the very ones that carry disease, along with beetles and all kinds of garden pests. And they do it without scratching your plants to ribbons the way chickens do. If you live anywhere ticks are a problem, a small flock can clear your whole yard through the summer, with 0 sprays and 0 chemicals. They also screech bloody murder at anything out of the ordinary, which makes them a shockingly good lookout, warning the entire flock the second a hawk or a fox comes sniffing around. They forage most of their own meals, so they cost almost nothing to keep. The honest catch, they are loud and they love to wander, so they suit a place with a bit of elbow room and neighbors who won't mind the noise. Keep a small group of a dozen or so, and they'll work a surprising amount of ground every day. Think of them less as livestock and more as the farm hands who never ask for a paycheck and never stop talking. Now, number 6 is going to sound like I'm breaking my own rules, but stick with me. A pig. Just one. And just for the season. Whatever you do, don't keep breeding pigs year-round on a small place. That's a headache nobody needs. Instead, buy a single wiener pig in the spring, raise it through the warm months, and butcher in the fall. No winter to feed it through, no long-term commitment hanging over you. And here's the beauty of it. That one pig turns all your waste into food. Garden trimmings, windfall apples, extra milk, kitchen scraps. All of it goes in, and a freezer full of pork comes out by autumn. Better still, you get lard. Real old-fashioned cooking fat you'd otherwise be buying at the store, which is a huge piece of true self-sufficiency. A spring piglet can pack on a couple 100 pounds by fall. One pig, one season, one enormous payoff. That's a few 100 pounds of pork and a winter's worth of lard for a fraction of what the same meat costs at the store, mostly fed on stuff you'd have thrown out anyway. You'll need solid fencing for those few months, and then you're done. And for the last one, I'll hand you a pick you've almost certainly heard of, but it is far too good to leave off this list, so it earns the closing spot. Rabbits. Pound for pound, a rabbit gives you more meat per square foot and per scoop of feed than nearly any animal alive. And it does the whole thing in total silence, which means you can raise them in a shed or a back corner where a crowing rooster would get you reported. A trio, 1 buck and 2 does, can keep a freezer stocked all year long, and they'll feed themselves partly on grass, weeds, and garden scraps. 2 healthy does can turn out well over 100 pounds of meat in a year, which is a remarkable amount of food from a corner of the yard most people waste. The hidden bonus most folks miss, rabbit droppings are what's called cold manure, meaning they won't burn your plants, so they go straight from the hutch onto the garden with no waiting around for them to age. The quiet little workhorse, every single time. Add it all up and you've got something the postcard never shows you. Quail and muscovies and pigeons filling the table, bees sweetening the shelf and lifting the whole garden along with them. A single pig turning your scraps into bacon, guineas standing guard, and rabbits quietly stocking the freezer. That's a real food system on a quarter acre, built almost entirely from the animals everybody else walks right past. The trick was never about having more land or more money. It was about choosing the ones that earn their keep instead of the ones in the daydream. Our grandparents knew that difference in their bones. Now you do too.